we're looking at a whole generation of women who were promised that you can have it all, that you can grind just like the boys do, that you can ascend to all of these levels. I mean, that's my story, anyways, like ascending the corporate ladder and realizing that it wasn't fulfilling, that I felt incredibly disconnected from myself, that there was so much struggle involved in that process. And it just kind of left me feeling empty, hollow, disconnected from myself. And lately, I've been really trying to undo the conditioning that says the harder I work, the more worthy the pursuit is. And I think that's a lot of how the traditional productivity world works, how it operates. And I just really don't believe that. I don't think that that's accurate. And for women who experience burnout, whether it's from grief, trauma, overwork, ADHD, we have to find a better path forward. We have to find one that integrates ease and pleasure and joy, not just grinding all the time.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back. I'm so excited to bring you this conversation. I got to sit down with Anna Seirian, who is a writer and coach for ADHD women who want to trade exhaustion and survival for ease and pleasure, which is so relevant. I am so ready for more ease, more pleasure, and our conversation today really ties in nicely with that. Anna is the writer of the best-selling Substack Ambitious Softie and the co-founder of Internet People, a digital media company and community for creatives, artists, and entrepreneurs. And today in our conversation, we are talking about a 52-week experiment that Anna is running to help create more vitality in her life and bring her back to feeling like herself after feeling like she kind of lost her sparkle, as she says, somewhere along the way. So I think a lot of you will resonate with this if you've been feeling like you just are not feeling quite like yourself, you're feeling off, you're feeling burnt out, you're feeling tired, and want little attainable ways to start feeling more like you again. So, very excited to share this episode with you. And without further ado, let's dive in. Hi, and welcome back to the channel. My name is Sarah Yudkin, and I'm a relationship anxiety coach who's here to help you learn about all things love, relationships, and how to navigate anxiety in your relationships. If relationships are really meaningful to you and you've gotten any value from my videos so far, I'd love to invite you to subscribe to my channel and become a member of the You Love and You Learn community. This goes a long way to supporting me in this channel and makes sure that you don't miss any new videos coming out. And if you enjoy this video, I'd love to hear from you. Drop me a like and a comment so I know what's resonating. Thank you for watching, and let's get into it. Hi, Anna. Thank you so much for joining me.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yes, I am too. And I'm excited to chat more about today's topic because I feel like for me personally, it's going to be very relevant. But before we dive into that, can you share a little bit more about like who you are? What are you doing in the world? What are you passionate about sharing with other people?
That is a great question, a big one that I've been really struggling against that's kind of landed me here over the last few months. So, I originally started back on TikTok in 2021. I was creating a lot of content about productivity, about ADHD, about healing. And over the years in that journey, I started a company called Internet People that I run with my co founder, Marissa Joe. And what we do specifically is we create spaces for creatives, artists, entrepreneurs, predominantly ADHD people to help move their creative dreams forward. And over the last year, I've really been feeling a tug, a pull to come out from behind the shadows of this business that I've been creating and allow myself to shine a little bit brighter. I think when you start your own company that you are not necessarily the face of, but it can kind of have its own brand identity, it's really easy to hide behind it. And I think in that process, I'm recognizing that I kind of lost myself, my point of view that I had at one point that led me to start this company. And I think when you are dealing with levels of being seen, sometimes it's really nice to have something to hide behind, but that only lasts as long as it lasts because you have this like inner knowing that needs to come out and shine a little bit brighter. And so over the last few months, I've been pivoting my content to be more about specifically helping ADHD women get out of the struggle and the suffering and the survival mode, because that's something that I know very well. and help transition to a life that feels a lot more fun and joyful, full of a lot more ease. And so I do that primarily through coaching. And I just launched my first audio course to help women with what I call soft ambition, helping people transition out of the burnout phases and into a life that feels more electric and alive in many ways. And I'm also running a year-long experiment called the Brilliance Experiment, which I know we're going to be talking about today. And that is a year of tiny little experiments to bring you back into your vitality again.
Yeah, so much goodness. I'm excited to dive into the Brilliance Experiment because I want to hear all about like how that came to be and what you're learning through that. But before we do, I'm curious about something that I've seen you share recently, like a phrase you've used, which is that you've found yourself sometimes living life on hard mode. And I'm super curious about like, what does it mean to you? What is a sign that someone's living life on hard mode? And how did you kind of come to this realization that that's where you were at?
So, when you think about a video game, there's multiple ways that you can play the video game. You can play it on easy, intermediate, or hard. And oftentimes, I think the hard mode we choose because we want to challenge ourselves a little bit more. We think that maybe it's a more worthy pursuit if we are struggling a bit more. And the other side of this is that I think a lot of us kind of grow up associating struggle with attention, with value. And it's taken me a while to kind of recognize this in myself when I was growing up with caretakers who maybe weren't as emotionally available. The experiences of struggle and suffering were the things that got me attention and got my parents to slow down and pay attention. And so I think what I'm recognizing now is that there was an association made a long time ago that when you are in struggle, when you are in suffering, you get attention, and attention equals love a lot of times. And so what I'm really contending with now is the last decade of my life has been full of a lot of transition, a lot of healing, a lot of upheaval. And what does it look like for me to now choose to struggle less in what I do, to suffer less, to try to live a little bit more on easy mode, to choose the path of least resistance, and to not believe that that makes me any less worthy? I mean, I think we're looking at a whole generation of women specifically are who I work with. So I'll speak specifically to that experience. But we're looking at a whole generation of women who were promised that you can have it all, that you can grind just like the boys do, that you can ascend to all of these levels. I mean, that's my story anyway, is like ascending the corporate ladder and realizing that it wasn't fulfilling, that I felt incredibly disconnected from myself, that there was so much struggle involved in that process. And it just kind of left me feeling empty, hollow, disconnected from myself. And lately, I've been really trying to undo the conditioning that says the harder I work, the more worthy the pursuit is. And I think that's a lot of how the traditional productivity world works, how it operates. And I just really don't believe that. I don't think that that's accurate. And for women who experience burnout, whether it's from grief, trauma, overwork, ADHD, we have to find a better path forward. We have to find one that integrates ease and pleasure and joy, not just grinding all the time, not just hard work all the time. And so, in all of this, it's caused me to really pause and think about where I'm creating unnecessary suffering for myself, where I'm doing things the hard way when I could be doing them easier, where I can ask for help. I'm really working on untangling the hyper independence, the president of the I've Got It Club. I don't want it anymore. And yet, it's so hard to allow yourself to receive love and connection and support and belonging, especially when you are tethered to an old identity that says you can handle it all and that you can do it all yourself. So when I'm not living life on hard mode, I'm trying to allow more of that connection and support and love in. without needing to be so independent around everything that I do.
Yeah. Oof, yeah, there's so much in there I can relate to. I feel like the boss babe era like really got our generation, and I obviously have a business and you have a business. Like it's wonderful when you can do something that maybe you feel more passionate about and like put it into the world. And I'm not here to say that that's wrong or bad or that achieving goals is wrong or bad, but like you said, if we're kind of grinding and white knuckling our way there, and there's never a chance to slow down and celebrate where you've gone, or if you're always just what's next, or I have to do more or be better, then to your point it does feel hard and you are living on that hard mode. And that's kind of what I realized about my relationship 5 years ago, is like I was living on hard mode in the relationship. Like I had a really still have a really safe, loving relationship. Yes, there were like hurdles like any other thing, but I was in hard mode in my head, analyzing things, judging things, jumping ahead to the future. What if we get a divorce like my parents do? Like everything was harder because of all of the stories and fears that were coming up for me. And then now, 5 years later, the same hard mode is kind of coming back with the way that I'm showing up in my business. It's like I'm overthinking things and comparing and, worrying about the next step. And it feels just a lot harder than in the beginning when I was like, let's see what happens with this. Now, there's all these pressures and expectations I'm placing on myself for it. And so, yeah, I just really resonate with that. And obviously, it's not easy to allow yourself to shift into easy mode, but I'm hoping that what you share today and some of the things you're learning in the Brilliance Experiment can kind of help inspire or invite people to try some of their own easy mode patterns, if you will.
Yeah, I love what you shared about the relationship because ultimately, this is a story about regulating your nervous system and allowing your nervous system to feel safe. So it kind of doesn't matter if it's showing up in a relationship or a business. This is all the same pattern that we're carrying around with us into everything. And this is one of the reasons why I find it so interesting is that it's kind of like whack-a-mole. You might think, I've
Mhm.
gotten this taken care of in my relationship, so I'm good now, right? And then you start a new chapter of your life and it's like, whoa, there it is. Like it always comes back around because this is a matter of your body feeling safe to relax, to be present, to receive. And that is no joke when you experience trauma, when you experience hardship. Like, no wonder so many of us are living life on hard mode. Look at the world, look at how we're programmed and conditioned. But I think what I'm really interested in exploring is where are we creating this for ourselves that we can detach from it and we can start making different choices and then build connections and community around that to show each other, to teach each other. Because the way things are going right now is not working. It's not working for me anyway.
Yeah, 100%. I think what's resonating with me lately is kind of remembering all the ways that our body used to be programmed to do things like, okay, you got your movement in because you were foraging for food or like gardening or like having to take care of something in the village, or you never saw a screen and you didn't have to be on a call for multiple hours a day or like creating content all the time. I think our brains and bodies are not used to the environment we're in. And so it's kind of a rebellious act these days, but a necessary one to be like, wait, like this environment isn't working for me. So, what are the things that I can influence to help that? And so, I think that's kind of what you were potentially leading up to with this Brilliance Experiment and maybe what you were trying to kind of set up for yourself. So, I'd love to hear what inspired this. What is the Brilliance Experiment? And like, how did this all kind of come to be?
So in January, I had an interesting experience. It kind of like came out of nowhere. I was really open to a new project for myself, open to a new point of view, a new journey to take with myself, my business. And I happened to go to a friend of mine's housemate's birthday party, somebody I'd met before, but I wasn't really close with. And it was like one of those parties where People are bright. There's a DJ, there's balloons. It's like a big, fun, festive party. And I showed up in a black turtleneck sweater, all black, just like a dark rain cloud. Like, that's not me at all. I've always seen myself as this like bright, shiny, sparkly person. And I just had this moment of consciousness, this awareness while I'm at this party, like, oh, as people are like trickling in and there's women who are, really got dolled up for this event. And I'm like, what? Why didn't even cross my mind to be a little bit more festive, to be a little brighter, to be a little sparklier? And what transpired over the next couple of days was just this recognition that I don't know where my sparkle went. Like I feel like I lost a part of myself and I don't know when it happened and I don't know how it happened, but the version of myself that I saw of myself in my mind was actually not the version of myself that I was living. And that dissonance was so shocking to realize. And it's like kind of a trivial story to tell in retrospect, but it really made me see how quickly we can lose ourselves, like how easily we can kind of lip out of what our special sauce was or what we saw for ourselves. And so it got me thinking, well, how do you get that back? How do you get your sparkle back? And so, like I mentioned before, what really gets me excited about this stuff is understanding how much this is a nervous system experience, how you have to teach your body what it feels like to be bright and alive again. And something I've thought about a lot over the years is how much of a traumatic experience the pandemic was. Mm. And we don't talk about that. We don't talk about it like a traumatic experience. But as somebody who has experienced big T trauma events, there's one of the best ways to pinpoint what's a big T trauma is when there's life before the thing and then there's life after the thing. Mm-hmm. And the pandemic is like a big, glaring, big T trauma that we don't know how to talk about. And what often happens when we experience these traumatic moments is that a part of ourselves that once was bright and open and connected goes away. And we don't even realize it's happening. We don't even notice it right away. In many of my experiences, it takes about a year to even recognize that that's something has happened or that there's a part of you that has become disconnected. And so it made me think that there are so many people who are probably in the same boat as me going, okay, what happened? I don't feel like myself. I don't know what happened. I don't know how to get that version of myself back. I don't know how to move forward. And so what I wanted to do with the Brilliance Experiment was to conduct weekly, tiny, really easy experiments that would bring me back into potential connection with myself. And what I didn't realize was how much this was going to turn into a reacquaintance with the sensory experience of life. And for the last couple of years, I have done a lot of work on my social media channels around digital well-being and kind of the reckoning of like what all of this screen time is doing to our bodies and our brains. And what's funny about it to me now is I'm now able to see like, oh yeah, we are all kind of chronically overstimulated. And one of the big things is that we are not leaving the house. We are not stopping to experience the pleasures of being outside, letting the sun hit our face, feeling our feet in the grass, smelling the roses. Like those really, they sound trivial, but like these things really matter when we're spending this much time on our screens. And so I didn't see this coming. I'm now 9 weeks into this experiment. I have signed myself up for 52 weeks. I don't even think I realized what I was doing when I signed myself up for this. Like I had somebody comment, I'm running this over on my Substack, by the way. I had somebody comment on my most recent article. So I'm publishing every Sunday. I'm sending out kind of a recap of the previous week's experiment. And then also for my paid subscribers, I'm setting them up for the next week's experiment. So if you're a free subscriber, you can always read in hindsight what I'm doing. But if you want to actually be involved in the experiment, that's what I'm doing behind a paywall. And somebody commented on last week's saying like they were really inspired by this and really inspired by the fact that I signed myself up for 52 weeks. And I was like, yeah, that is kind of a big commitment that I just jumped into because I don't know what all 52 weeks are going to be. I have a list. I have some that I'm really excited to do, some that I feel really confident guiding people through, things that there are practices that have meant a lot to me. But a lot of it is just pure experimentation. And some of them have meant more than others. So I'll give you an example of what some of them have been. So for week one, it was to wear bright colors every single day. That was revolutionary for me, who was usually just rolling up in black sweats to every Zoom meeting, right? So I forgot what it felt like to be a little bit brighter. And the way that it helped me to show up in the world was like completely different. So the second week, we did going out into the world, like with purpose, with intention every single day, like leaving the house every day. And if you're somebody who works from home, like there's a good chance you're not really leaving the house, or you're leaving the house to like schlep down to the grocery store to get an onion, right? You're not going out with purpose and intention. And that one stacked on top of the previous week about wearing more color, it was like, oh, hang on. I'm just like not showing up in the world. And so every single week, like as we're stacking more, last week's experiment, I was like, what happens if I wear perfume every day? Like I'm always treating perfume like it's this like finishing touch for a nice enough event.
Mm,
But what if I treated myself like somebody who gets to wear the expensive perfume every day just because?
mm,
And so there's so many layers of this experiment that are helping me to come back into connection with myself, back into value of myself, and also to inspire and motivate all of the people who are my subscribers in this event too, because it's been really fun just to see how shared of an experience this is. I mean, there's so many reasons why we lose our sparkle: grief, trauma, death, divorce, motherhood, burnout, you name it. There's so many reasons why we fall out of connection with ourselves. And it's just been really fun to remember that, to reacquaint yourself with some things that you once loved is actually, it's not that distant. It's not that complicated. Like I think the wellness world makes us think that we need to buy like a red light therapy mask and we need to do cold plunges. And like, I just reject all of that. I think it's actually so much more simple and joyful than all of that stuff.
yeah. Oof, so much goodness in there. There was a video. The one thing about the internet that's beautiful, but also sometimes hard is like you'll see a random video, something sticks out for you, and then you're like, dang it, I can't like quote that person exactly. But I just saw a video of someone saying, answering a Q&A of like, how do you move forward if you're stuck? And she was like, the first step is remembering you're not stuck and just getting up in that moment and doing something with like your autonomy and your free will. Even if you just get up out of bed the next moment or you step outside and take a deep breath, it doesn't have to be this huge life-changing thing, but those little moments add up. And I feel like the thing you just said about it doesn't have to be this whole new routine. It's just these bite-sized things that make a difference. And I remember back in February and then early March, I was like, I am in such a funk right now that I will try anything. And I kept seeing, even though it annoyed me, I kept seeing people saying like, get up and get ready for the day. It actually makes you feel better about yourself. And I was like, oh, I don't want to do that. It's just so much more comfortable. And then part of me is like, why should I have to look good in order for people to respond to me? Like I can just be myself and not have to care about those things. But I felt better. It's not even about whoever sees me, whatever it is. It was just like I felt better putting on a little makeup or putting on a matching athleisure set instead of like my gross sweatpants and mixed match sweatshirt that I didn't need to be wearing that day, just left it on from overnight. So I think those little things are the steps that really do add up, but we just have to be willing to push past maybe the inner voice of, oh, that's cringe, or why do you care about that? And just be willing to try.
Well, I think a big reason, what I'm hearing you say, and this is exactly what I felt too, is I got so tired of the performance of myself. That's a huge reason why I ended up in burnout in the first place. I was trying to perform a version of myself that was no longer aligned with how I felt about myself. And so you kind of have to let that whole thing burn, right? You got to burn it to the ground. But then in the discarding of that, you can't also discard yourself. You have to come back to the reasons that you feel good about yourself, the things that you do to feel alive. And one of the experiments we ran a few weeks ago was making something with your hands.
Mm.
And my essay on the other side of it was like, why why can't I just make something without trying to monetize it? Why can't I just play with air dry clay or watercolor paints without trying to turn it into an Etsy store? Like, how have I gotten so far off track that I can't just let myself play in the way that I did when I was a little girl? And so a
Yeah.
lot of these experiments are really just about healing the part of you that you needed to perform for other people and allowing yourself to just enjoy the act for the pure sake of enjoyment and pleasure.
Yeah. No, that's such a big lesson. I'm curious. I want to hear if there's any other lessons that have come from this of like things maybe that were surprising to you, but also maybe if any of them felt harder than you thought they might be. Like, oh, this is going to be piece of cake for 7 days, no biggie, but maybe you were met with your own inner resistance or judgment of the activity. Like, I'd love to know what you're learning from this.
Yeah, so I've done 9 weeks so far, and two of them I almost failed.
Mm.
The first one was actually the one where we were making stuff with our hands, and I totally thought that was going to be a piece of cake because I love being creative, but I resisted it all week. And I think it had a lot to do with the fact that I didn't place value on deliberately unproductive time because
Mm.
that's what that was going to require of me is to just play for an hour, right? And so I kept putting it off every single day. And then it was like down to the wire. I write my essays on Saturdays. It was Friday morning, and there was like this block of air dry clay that I had planned to use all week that was just sitting there unopened. And I was like, okay, it's time. Really just let that go down to the wire. And it was so fun. It was just like play. I didn't look at my phone for hours and I was just so present. And like I mentioned, like this sensory experience of just allowing yourself to be like fully absorbed in an activity was just, it was very eye opening. And then the other one that I almost failed was around decluttering my entryway. So I was thinking about this principle in feng shui that says if you want the universe to enter through your home, well, like what's your doorway, your entryway look like? Is it cluttered? Is it chaotic? Is it messy? And so I challenged everybody to just tackle like either the entryway to their house or maybe in their bedroom or like some space that you go in and out of frequently and to take a look at that. And there was like this huge stack of art from like decades of art that I've been making that was behind a doorway. There were shoes everywhere. It was just kind of a mess. Like, I don't know when it became like this chaotic dumping ground
Mm.
because I'm usually a very clean and organized person, but I put that off until the very last minute because it was a confrontation with myself. It was a confrontation of a bunch of stuff that I was hanging on to that I didn't need to. It was tasks that I intended to deal with months ago. It was where do I put 10 years worth of art that's not hanging on my wall? Like, well, what do I do with it? I can't just throw it away, right? So, like, where does this go? It was a lot of mental hurdles to get through. But what's interesting is that experiment is not a sexy experiment at all, but the lasting effects of that one have been major.
Yeah.
Every time I leave and come back into my home, just having that visual mental space to breathe is huge. So those have been the two that were the biggest resistance. And certainly some of them feel a lot easier than others. The one we did last week around perfume was really interesting because it made me think about how scent has been used in ritual transformation for centuries, right? if you go into the temple in ancient Greece, somebody's using oils on your skin, on your forehead, helping you to, move through an energy to cleanse, all of that stuff. And yet I'm holding on to all of this perfume for what? Like for a future version of myself that's more worthy of it? Like,
Mm.
no, I'm not going to be living my life that way. I really
Yeah.
want to be treating myself like somebody I love and cherish every single day. And every single day this week, I've been spritzing myself with perfume just for the hell of it because it feels great, because it smells good. And when I put on the sweater a few days later, it still smells like that perfume. And it's just like a really nice way to care for myself.
Yeah. Yeah, that's so true about saving the nice stuff for certain things, or like splurges, but not necessarily needing to. You can just give yourself permission at any time to wear a little bit of a fancier thing or like jewelry, even. I've never been a big jewelry person, but I notice you're wearing pretty earrings right now, and it's like maybe I could just wear earrings for a work day. I don't have to only save them, for like a nice outfit or whatever it is. But it almost
Yeah.
never occurred to me.
Well, I think that's like what's the interesting thing about this whole experiment is there's just so many things that I just never think of. And I think maybe that's one of the big reasons why we fall out of step with taking good care of ourselves is that it's so subtle and we so subtly drift away from valuing and caring for ourselves in these really loving ways that make us feel good.
Was there any, it sounds like, I mean, a few of them, it sounds like you're sharing that you've enjoyed and like had a lot of fun with, but is there one that sticks out that's been like your favorite or that you were like, wow, like this made such a bigger impact? I know the wearing color one seems to have stuck with you well.
Yeah, the wearing color one was a big one. That was week one. And like every week, I think about it all the time. Just because it's such an easy way to inject more life into how you move through the world. I think the other really transformative one was one I called the Daily Dance Party. And the challenge was 10 minutes a day, just dance it out. And it was one of the most stressful weeks of the last 9 weeks. And every day it was like, oh my God, this feels like the stupidest thing to make time for when like the pressures of life are so much bigger and more complex. Like, am I really gonna put on this playlist and dance for 10 minutes? But that's how we heal and teach our bodies that it's safe to feel things, to move the energy. And it definitely reignited something in me to remember that when I experience stress, when I'm processing difficult emotions, that the movement of my body is a really efficient and effective way to navigate the difficult energy.
Yeah. Yeah, I always feel the same after I move my body in some way. And also music is such like a sensory experience. And it's been such a part of me and Nate's life. Obviously, this is not part of like a Brilliance experiment to go to a concert or a festival. That doesn't happen like on the reg, but kind of sidebarring with that when we do get to have that experience because we met going to a concert through friends, like that is one of those things that always like takes me out of whatever's going on and just kind of puts me in that present moment. And so I imagine even if it was just a 10-minute dance break that that would do the same thing. But again, my brain just doesn't think about that. It's like, oh, I'll just, go to the concert or festival this summer, but it's like, wait, I could literally make a micro version of that today?
Yeah, what's been interesting about the whole thing is recognizing that it's kind of like a mindfulness exercise in disguise.
Mm,
Because every single one invites you to really get present with yourself in an unexpected way. So to your point about the music, this week the experiment is podcast audiobook deprivation. And I
ooh,
was like nervous about this one because I listen to a lot of podcasts. I use them to help me do boring tasks like chores. I use them to help me transition between work and downtime or getting myself out of the house. And so I was actually nervous that this one was going to be like really difficult for me. And it actually has been difficult, but it's been so beautiful and eye opening and rewarding in some very unexpected ways. I felt like this whole week so far, I've been really present, really creative. I spent a lot more time in silence, listening to music. I've always been a big music person, but over the last few years, I've been lacking on my music discovery, my musical exploration, because I've
Mm,
been listening to so many podcasts or just like taking whatever Spotify gives me and just not engaging with it in a way that I
mm,
once did. Like when I was a teenager, I used to go to the public library and just check out stacks of CDs
mm,
and go burn them, make playlists. Like that was just like that was my thing. I was burning playlists for all my friends, giving them out. Like I love music. And this week is really reconnecting me with that version of myself in a really beautiful and positive way.
yeah. And I love how accessible everything is that you're saying. Whether, again, if someone wants to follow along with the version of your experiment where they get to participate the week of, or whether they're looking back on it, like all these ideas are very accessible and they're things that you can try. And it doesn't have to be this whole 10-step process. And I think that's the most important thing. And the word that you used of like trying to get back some of your vitality, I think that's just such a powerful word, such a life force of like vitality, all these synonyms for that. It just feels like, oh, this is something I can make time for. Having energy and having some level of safety to feel joy and excitement. I won't feel that way all the time, but like making moments in my day or my week, it just feels very meaningful and necessary, especially in this overstimulated world of so much input and information and being chronically online, as you and MJ say.
Yeah, and it is such a, it's a dark period of history too. And it almost feels frivolous to be pursuing joy and pleasure in the midst of so much suffering. And yet at the same time, I think that in and of itself is such a powerful resistance. And we hear a lot of people say things like joy is resistance, but how? Then that's what I'm curious about is like practically, how do I experience joy and connection and vitality in the face of all of this in a way that feels like it's a reclamation of myself? I don't want to be just a passive consumer of all of the darkness in this world. Like, I got to fight back somehow. And I think in doing this, you get a chance to touch other people's lives in some really powerful ways. Because if you leave your house, people are vacant and they are checked out and they are not happy. And if you can show up in the world, I think one of my favorite things to do is to challenge myself when I'm feeling low to go get a coffee and try to be the best interaction the barista has all day.
Mm,
Like what does that look like for me to be the light in a dark world?
mm,
And it's a very powerful shift from going from a consumer. So many of us are just consumers rather than active participants in joy and pleasure and vitality. It's actually not that difficult, but it has to come with intention.
yeah, I love that. I think I heard you say that once on an episode of the podcast. I forget when, but I was like, that is so powerful. Or you said something like, I like to pretend I'm the mayor of my neighborhood or something and like say hi to everybody on my walk and like be the nicest person to the barista. And I was like, that is such a good mindset. And my mom is classic. Like if we're walking around, her neighborhood or anywhere really, she's just like, hello. She like will smile and greet people that like don't, half the time don't even say anything back. But I was like, that's a good quality to have. I've started trying to at least acknowledge people that I pass by as often as possible because I feel like most of the times you awkwardly look away and you're like, wait, I feel like we're both here in this moment. Can we just, acknowledge each other for a second?
Yeah, and you're not always in the mood to do it, and like that's fine. But I think whenever you can find it in yourself to be the connecting point, that there's always reward in it somewhere in that process. And I don't know if you've seen online people having the whole conversation about everyone wants a village, but no one wants to be a villager. Like,
I've
this is
I've seen
how
it.
you be a better villager is by making yourself available to connection. And it's tough because so many of us have our backs up around like boundaries and not wanting people to be in, like, getting in our way, whatever. But I just think that's not the world I want to live in. The world I want to live in is open and connected and loving.
Yeah. 1000%. Well, before I ask final questions, is there anything else about the Brilliance Experiment that you've either learned so far or that you're excited about that's coming up, or just like anything around it that we didn't get to cover?
I'm excited to see it grow. I'm excited to see more people join in on this. And if you're curious about this, you can join over on my Substack. I'll give you a link to that. I don't know if you do on your show notes, but
Yeah.
you can catch up on all my past experiments. You can become a paid subscriber for $5 a month and get in on the community. We have a chat that's going all week long where we can kind of check in on each other, see what's coming up for people, to keep everybody motivated, which is really fun. And yeah, I'm just excited to get more people involved in this because I'm noticing such a huge shift in myself just 9 weeks in that it's really given me a lot of agency back. It's given me a lot of joy back and a lot of power thinking about moving forward. There's always going to be difficult things that happen in life. But I think what I'm learning through this experiment is how much you can take that back for yourself. You can take back the power as you are ready to move through those difficult experiences. Fundamentally, I think the whole project is just about the reclamation of ourselves after these difficult experiences. And when we're feeling a loss of who we once were and trying to navigate into who life is shaping us into, I think it's better to do it with an open heart. And that's what each of these experiments really positions you to do.
Yeah, I love that. We'll definitely put in the show notes the link so people can find that and stay in the know. So, the last question I ask all of my guests, because this is the You Love and You Learn podcast, what is something you have learned about love or self-love that you would want to leave listeners with?
Okay, I love this question. This year, I walked in with an intention for myself that is to let people love me. And I think this is really underrated in terms of the personal development world. Like we were talking about at the beginning of this conversation, like a lot of this hyper independence conversation is kind of like a big barrier and boundary to letting people show up for you and love you and support you. It's like a protective mechanism. And so, one of the things I really wanted to work on was letting people show up for me and really trying to understand what support feels like. And it's just been so remarkable what giving that intention for myself has opened me up to this year because I think it helps you to navigate fear of being seen, fear of rejection. It helps you to create a stronger sense of community for yourself. It helps you to hear people differently because you'll hear people trying to love you all the time, but if you're not open to it, you won't even clock it. And so I think allowing yourself to be loved, to be supported is a really underrated skill that I hope to see more people and more women, especially, begin to cultivate.
That's so powerful. What would be an example of like maybe something that someone's trying to do to love you, but without being open to it, you might like shut it down or might not even notice it's happening? Because I feel like I could probably stand to be on the lookout for stuff like this too. And everything you're saying is resonating, but I would love to give like a tangible example of maybe ways that people try to show their love, but can get shut down sometimes.
Yeah, I think a really obvious one for me in my dating experiences is when somebody wants to pick me up for a date or when they want to open my door or when they want to do something so small and subtle for me and I'm like, "No, I got it. It's okay. I got it." Like
Mm,
maybe I don't got it. Maybe I need to just let you do it because it's a way that you are demonstrating your care.
mm,
And in that practice, I'm learning how great it feels to have people show up for you. Like, yes, pick me up. That sounds awesome. Then I don't have to go drive to that place. I don't have to deal with parking. I don't have to deal with any of that stress. Like, yes, please do that for me. But the hyper independent version of myself would be like, no, I need to go there on my own so that I have an exit strategy, so that
mm,
like all of this, like, I don't need to be on defense. And I want to
mm.
be more on offense. Like, this is part of getting out of hard mode is like, why am I living on defense all the time?
Yeah, yeah. And as you were talking, another example came up of like someone giving you a compliment or hyping you up. And then it's like, oh, yeah, but it wasn't a big deal. Oh, yeah, like whatever, this old shirt, or like, oh, yeah, it only took me a few minutes to whip that up. It's like, no, let someone celebrate you. That's something I've been actively practicing more of too.
That's such a good example because we all do it. Like, let me explain this thing away or to not accept the compliment. Like, just say thank you. Just say thank you. It's not that hard. It might feel uncomfortable in the beginning, but the more you practice receiving a compliment by saying thank you, the easier it gets.
Yes, absolutely. Well, we're going to link the Substack in the show notes for sure. But aside from that, is there anywhere else you want people to stay connected with you? And definitely plug the podcast because that's one of my favorites.
Yeah. So my co-host, my co-founder, MJ, and I publish a weekly podcast on Internet People. So the Internet People podcast, we are Internet People on Instagram and Substack. But you can also find me personally on Instagram at Anna Seirian. And then I'm Ambitious Softie on Substack as well. Lots of really exciting things happening in my world in the next couple of months. So yeah, definitely come find me over there and say hi.
Yes, I highly encourage it. And I know that this is a whole potentially other podcast conversation, but you and MJ doing The Artist's Way, which is like a book by Julia Cameron over the last, I think, what, 8, 9 weeks together, and then talking about your experience inspired me to buy the book. And as soon as wedding and honeymoon is over, I was telling you this earlier that I definitely want to dive into that because the way you guys are processing it and sharing your experience is so inspiring. And I felt like my creative spark has been kind of in limbo for a little bit. So you guys have officially made me want to kind of like open that, crack that open again and dive in. So thank you.
Yes, The Artist Way has changed my life every time I go through it. So I definitely recommend it.
Yeah, I will also put that book in the show notes. I haven't gone through it yet, so I can't speak to it, but I keep hearing such good things. And I think you guys were the ones that were saying how Dochi went through it, and then she has a Grammy now. So let's just assume that we're all going to be, if we
One
read
of
the
the
book, it'll be great.
one of the things that makes this journey through the Artist Way a little different is we're doing the bare minimum version of it because the Artist Way is notoriously difficult to get through. So we're making podcast episodes and focusing really just on reading the text. There's a ton of exercises in it, and most people give up on like week 3. So we just wanted to lower the bar for ourselves. Talk about getting off of hard mode and doing it on easy mode. Like this, this is us doing the Artist Way on easy mode and still getting a lot out of it. So
Yes, perfect, perfect, perfect. Good way to kind of take this full circle. Well, thank you so much, Anna. I'm excited that everyone gets to hear your wisdom and looking forward to getting to follow along with more of what you're doing and all the things that are coming up in your world.
thanks, Sarah.
Yes, thanks everyone, and I'll see you in the next episode.